Hello, everybody. Welcome on this spring day. We're broadcasting live from Ohio. No snow on the ground, which is excellent. Thank you for joining WEBtips today. As you know, our series alternates between topics around SAP transactional interactions using Winshuttle and the form and workflow tool. So today, we are going to be talking about form and workflow. What I'd like to ask is that everyone stay on mute, but if you have a question, you can type it into the chat window or you can raise your hand, and we'll take a brief pause and make sure we're addressing anything that prompts some thinking as we're going through the topics today. Just to level set on what WEBtips is, I think most of you who are on today have participated before, but we want to make sure that we're building a community and that we're sharing information around the utilization of Winshuttle. So we're trying to keep this interactive. If you have ideas for topics, things that you might be struggling with or want to learn more about, we're happy to take that back. But every one of our Solution Care customers has access to WEBtips. And we've also, I like Justin put it in the spoke with the car, we did listen, and we want to make it easier for you to access recordings as you want to go back through and refresh your memory on some of the topics. So what we've done is you're used to using our portal for logging tickets. So anyone who's a Solution Care customer or anyone who has purchased the series can also use our portal to access previous recordings. We're reporting them all over. But I'm going to turn this over to Dave Roa for a bit to show you exactly what it looks like in our knowledge base so that you can find some of the past recordings. So thank you. Dave?
Thanks, Beth. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Roa. I kind of heading up the Solution Care offering right now. And as Beth said, you guys spoke and we heard, and we are now going to start providing our webinar, our WEBtips, recordings and material to you via the customer portal, the client portal. So a lot of you are familiar with the screens here, and I've spoken to a good number of you about this. If at all you're ever looking for WEBtips or you want to search for ideas that we talk about, the easiest way to get to them is just to go over to our knowledge base, hit the search button, and our WEBtips, along with other items that we feel pertinent and necessary for you to see, will show up out here. One of the things you can do is to quickly access topics. Just do a quick search on whatever you're looking for. And then, for example, you'll see that this was our January 15th WEBtip. When you click on it, it'll open up a separate browser that has all the keywords that are searchable for this, as well as some information about the WEBtip itself, as well as the entire recording, so you can listen to this and expand it to fit your browser if you need to. And then you'll notice at the bottom here, we also are going to include all of the pertinent attachments, all the files that you can use to perform these actions on your own. So this is kind of where we want to be heading with WEBtips, and we will be backfilling as we can with some of the older WEBtips. But moving forward, you should be able to access any of these WEBtips via the knowledge base on the customer portal. Okay, and with that, back to Justin.
All right, thanks, Dave. Welcome everyone to our April WEBtips. I'm your lovely host this evening and morning, depending on where you are in the world. Justin Barr. I'm a Winshuttle architect, SharePoint architect. I've used the tool for several years now that we're now starting to bring these WEBtips and our experience to you. So just a little bit about me, and we'll go ahead and get into our actual monthly topic. So our April WEBtips, we're going to cover several different items, things that we have been asked by our customers on what are some of the new changes to workflow and how you administrate it. So there's actually, with the new release, Winshuttle has 10.8, and there's a new Winshuttle Workflow Central Admin site. So I'll go over in the 10.8 release some of the Workflow Central Admin site. We've also prepared, as always, form and workflow demonstrations. So we have a demonstration on form delegation. Some people may have seen the form delegation control but never really realized what that is for. So we'll have a cool demo for form delegation, and then we'll also talk about some of your data validation options. There's a lot of redundancy when it comes to data validation. Inside of a form, there's many different ways to do that, so we'll show you some of the ways to perform some data validation. And then lastly, if we have time, I wanted to cover PowerShell and how we're incorporating PowerShell into some of our designs. I think we've talked at lengths before, and maybe even showed you some of the PowerShell, but it seems to be consistently coming up across a lot of projects. There's that one thing that needs to get done that just we found that PowerShell makes it easier and makes it a more usable application. So some of our clients have requested some interesting requirements, and we'll share some of those requirements and then tell you how we would solve it with PowerShell. So getting into our first topic, we're going to cover the Winshuttle Workflow Central admin site. So I know a lot of clients are on a lot of different versions, some on 10.6, some on 10.7, and some on 10.8. So in 10.6 and 10.7, you'll see the old Winshuttle workflow. They called it ShareViz Central Admin. Some people may have used it, some people may not have used it. So in the 10.8 version, Winshuttle actually redid the entire Winshuttle Workflow Central Admin site. Made it a lot more of an HTML5 based application. A lot of things that you had to log into the server to do, now you can actually do through this Winshuttle Workflow Central. So we're going to look at three of the key areas, which is logs and reporting. Unfortunately, we're not running a production-based system, so our logs and our report, as far as reporting goes, we won't get the metrics you'll get that you need to be able to report on your individual business process. If you want to gain insight into your capital expenditure request, your material master creation, or your employee onboarding process, where's the bottlenecks? Those are the real key capabilities of this tool, and now you have a website or Winshuttle Central Admin, Workflow Central Admin to actually do that. We'll look at some of the processes, things that you can do, and then some server admin stuff. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump out of the tool, and we'll jump into our workflow. So we always show our test SharePoint site, and as this Winshuttle Workflow Central it's also just a URL you can go to that's on the SharePoint server that gets installed with your workflow tool. So we'll go ahead and log in. And you'll see that this is loading up, and then there's a lot of cool, HTML5. Like I said, it was completely rewritten for a better use case, and it segregates it out by logs and reports, some processes, and then some server admin stuff. With that said, one of the things that we've done for several clients is we've extended the Winshuttle application across multiple SharePoint environments. So not everyone is just using one SharePoint environment. You may see 5 or 6 SharePoint environments that's all leveraging the Winshuttle platform. So at the top right, you're going to see information on which SharePoint site you're actually doing the administration on, and you can change it by switching to either one of them. So we have, in our case, we have 2 examples. Winshuttle Central, which is completely different than Winshuttle Workflow Central, and it's more based on the SAP and the Foundation clients for Winshuttle. And then there's just our SharePoint site. So we're going to do some things on our SharePoint site today. So we'll go ahead and start with our log and reporting. We'll just show you the Excel-based charts. What's interesting around these is it allows you to report on any site that you currently have processes running, or any forms and workflows. So you may have a marketing site or an HR site, and you may have specific processes that you want to look at more of the information on. So I'm just going to select my test site, and then we can see the types of reports. So there's many different reports. You can look at the process overall, how it's performing. You can look at tasks within those processes. So a task being, we can do president approval or CFO approval, a task could be enter the data into your ERP system. So each one of these tasks that are designed in your workflow can be reported on, as well as the people that are actually doing those tasks can be reported on. So you have performers, and you can look at individual people. If you have 5 customer service reps processing sales orders, you can see that which customer service rep is performing faster, or why others may be performing slower. So all this data has always been available. It's just been kind of hard to get to. So in this new version in 10.8 Winshuttle Workflow Central, you have a little bit easier access to get to that information. So if we do go ahead and just say, we'll say task by performance, and then we can look at some of, these are all the forms in the workflow I've done for WEBtips and clients over times and demos. There's a lot of forms that I have in here, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the request for information. And I know I did this a long time ago. It was a demo way back in the day, so I'll take this back to April 1st, and then you can report on it through today's date, the 16th. We can look at it with our bar chart. We can give it a title if we are going to export this out. But by just clicking continue, Winshuttle will go out and gather this information for us. So we can see in this type, for this type of report, it's looking at the task and what each person's taking from a count perspective. And all of this you can export out to Excel and be able to see where the underlying data is coming from. So in this case, we're seeing 2 different tasks. If we wanted to change our report around and say, instead of looking at it by task, let's look at it by person, we can go ahead and select our performance by performers. And then this will show you that the CEO is taking, a little bit longer to approve. The CFO, he's taken almost as long, and then lastly, Justin, he's getting them and processing pretty quickly. So you can look at these reports and really drill down, and all of this stuff is available through the help. On the lower left, you can click the help button and really look at each and every report. But I just wanted to make sure you knew this information was available, and it kind of hits on our second topic here. Or our second button, that you can export all this data down to Excel to do your own manipulations. So these are your 2 type of reporting capabilities you get out of Winshuttle Workflow Central. Some other information is logging. So we all have errors, and we hate them, and we want to know why we're getting an error on our form. So with the past, we always had to log into the server to actually run a couple commands to be able to enable logging. Well, now you have a nice web interface, so we can go ahead and click on logging, and these are all your different types of logs. So out of the gate, when this loads up, it's going to tell me which logs are enabled and what type of error logging is happening. So core logs are the core logs of the platform. That's where everything Winshuttle Workflow runs off of. The SV service logs, those are logs that are actually the timer job that sends out emails, that does email approvals. Anything that has to be done in a synchronous or an asynchronous way will go, that gets scheduled, will be run through this SV service. There's also a timer job that writes information for workflow stuff. And then we have the central admin, Winshuttle Workflow Central Admin, and then our SV ADM, which is a command prompt that you can use. All of those are actually being logged as error logs right now. The big difference here is, if you want to see full-blown everything that's happening on your site, to really drill down to not only report, in this case, we're just reporting errors. In other cases, we want to see from start to finish, the moment I launch the form or the moment I push this button, I want to see everything that happens so I can further debug it. That's where our debug logs come in. And by selecting debug, you have 2 options. You can clear out the existing log so that everything that was currently there just gets wiped out, or you can append to it. So if you don't want to wipe out all of your existing errors and you want to keep those, maybe definitely want to do that in production so you can have past history, you would just append to those logs, and then all you have to really do is hit save. So now for me browsing around the site, anytime any interaction that I do with the site, we can just fire up one of our forms for today. All of this information is being logged into our logging. And what you'll notice, if someone ever calls you and says, the site's going really extremely slow today, you'll probably figure out that somebody forgot to turn off logging. So you don't want to do this in a production environment unless it's absolutely necessary. A lot of times what we tell people is do a backup of production, restore down to a staging or a test environment, and then run your logs there. So you'll see that this is going to take a little bit longer. While this is presenting, I'm going to flip back over and go to our log file viewer. So once we change the logging, then it's going to switch us over to the log file viewer. There's two ways of getting to it. It's just right through here. When you change logging, it automatically puts you there. So we'll click on log file viewer. We can select what type of log we want. So these are all the logs that we enable. So if we choose core logs, and then we choose what type of information do you want to see? Well, I want to see the debug information, about 100 lines, the last meg, and then we just click display log set. So this will go to that log file, and right through the web interface you can actually get the last 100 lines, and you can see that 1107, we're in debug mode. This is some of the information that's happening on that data validation form. And you can see that it's the employee, the test employee, who's currently running that, and that's who I'm logged in as on our other screen. So this is all debug information, very valuable to help you find out, and then very accessible through the actual Winshuttle Workflow Central admin site. So what I'm going to go do so that I don't slow down our rest of our demos is I'm just going to switch everything back to an error-only mode. This is the typical setup that you just want to report errors in your environment. Flipping back out to our administration page that covers logs and reporting. Now the next session is around your processes and setting up background process and jobs for your actual site, as well as being able to administrate and do bulk level approvals on current running processes. So let's go ahead and take a look at the background processes real quick. So these are all things that happen with the Winshuttle service job. So you'll see things in here like sending emails. You can see right here it says send email executor. You can see the type is complete. So we can filter on a period of time, like for the last week, show me all send emails or email approvals. And then you can actually filter on status, whether it's pending, in process. So this will refine the search. So we see right here, here's an email approval, and it's still pending. A lot of times what you want to look at is errors, things that have errored out. So by going to the manage background, we can see things that have actually errored out in this particular case. So in this case, we can see there was an error on sending an email on this date and time. Sometimes you want to be able to reset the status. So before we had to run some commands on the server to be able to resend that email. Now you can actively monitor that, select whatever ones you want, and then there's this reset status to pending. So by resetting it to pending, now the next time the timer job wakes up, then it's going to actually go try to send that. So we can see some of our pending tasks. So this is a better way of managing the thing that you never really saw, like how did emails go out of the system, how are they sending to me, how am I doing email approvals, all the way to some of the plugins that are getting called, like copying a form. These are all plugins that get called, Powershell, which we're going to talk about later. All these plugins get called, and they're all done through this actual service. So if we say all PowerShell, we should have a couple, yeah. So if I say all PowerShell, we can see that some PowerShell things have gotten called before in the past and that they've executed successfully. All right, jumping back out, and we'll look at the process control. So every SharePoint site, every Winshuttle Forms site actually has a process control, and all those processes you can limit it to say show me all processes across my Winshuttle application, or you can say just show me processes for this particular site. So in our example, I'm going to go to our test.jbar site, which is my test site. We can look at all running processes. You can filter it by a specific definition. So if I want to say show me all credit requests, show me all employee onboardings, you can actually take a look at just running all employee onboardings. And then there is you can filter by a specific name, like if you're looking for a particular employee. So this is a really good way for the administrator to keep track and look and see if certain statuses of items. You can filter it by the originator and then any overdue. So you can just look at all overdue tasks if you wanted to. In this case, we're just going to look at my site running, and then you have all these current processes here. So we have cash apps, workflow, assignment errors, all these different processes. So what you have the ability to do with this is select all of these, and you can bulk reject them, bulk approve them. All these are comments like if cancel everything, cancel these processes. Say we want to cancel maybe our top 3 processes here. We can say cancel these processes, and it says, are you sure you want to cancel, and hit OK. Before, it was a lot more of a pain to go in and cancel those. We had to find what was the specific ID that we wanted to cancel. So we had to find that ID. It was really burdensome for the common user, the admin even of the Winshuttle application, to be able to cancel these processes. So with this this nifty tool here, you can just see all the processes. You can filter by people, and you can see what's currently running. Like if we wanted to take a look at our employee, and we can say all processes for that employee and hit search. That employee, this specific employee, test employee, is nothing. They have no originator. You can switch it to all, and then we get a couple more forms. So we get the training site. We use this particular employee as the originator. So as you can see, there are these ways of administrating your form and your workflow that makes it a little bit easier to look at your Winshuttle application holistically versus just wondering, where all of this information is. Winshuttle's always tracked it, just never really gave you a great way to get to it. So lastly, this is your server admin section. This section really helps you do any of the admin commands, configuration options that you're needed to do within your application. So a lot of times, some people were using the configuration options in the old ShareViz Central Admin, but the new Winshuttle workflow makes it a little bit easier to do those configuration options. You also get insight into your database usage. As I said before, we are able to extend the Winshuttle application to other SharePoint web applications. That's what this extend workflow was. All of that was actually built into the installer, but now you can actually do it through this interface here, as well as configure your licensing, your front end, and then schedule jobs and workflow design configuration. So we'll look at a couple of these real quick. One of the first ones I want to look at is the configuration options. This gives you a good idea of what we're going to look at for a SharePoint configuration values. We can tell it we want to see some names that contain SharePoint, and we're going to say no values and hit search. Let's see here. Let's look at name with no values, and I'm getting errors, access denied, so we may not do any configuration options. Let's try going in there one more time. Oh. All right, so we'll skip out on this configuration options and go to our next database usage statistics. So this is telling you the Winshuttle application where each one is using, how many megabytes each one of the databases and the tables that are inside of your databases are using. So if you've ever wondered, why is my ShareViz database or my Winshuttle database 7 gigs? In our case, we have a little over 2 gigs here. This is the information that's been stored for both your configuration data, your workflow solution data, and then your process transaction data. So we have many demos and many forms and many processes we publish. We could see that up here the workflow solution definitions are only taking up 2 gigs. Our configuration values are only taking up 1.2 megs. And then the process transaction data is only taking up 17 megs. So overall, from a database perspective, as I tell a lot of new clients, your database isn't going to grow a lot over time. We've been running on this particular database for over 2 years, and we're only, roughly using a little over 2 gigs of data space. So this is all good stuff for your server admin, just to keep track of the usage and the statistics. Lastly, I want to talk about the scheduler. Winshuttle knows that there are certain key tasks that will help you with your performance of your Winshuttle application. We have many clients asking us, how can we have so many forms and workflow? How do we archive? We have so many processes and so many developers that forms have been not used anymore and marked inactive. How do we actually get those old orphaned processes off of our workflow, our SharePoint Central, our workflow admin site, our Winshuttle site? So all those different things have a key thing that it'll help you, and the bottom line is its performance when it comes to archiving, or when it comes to purging your background information or your inactive processes. So one of the things that I've learned over time, and an experience that we have, is that when you do migrations, you're migrating from one server to the next, that if a lot of companies don't get rid of their background data, all those processes that we had saw earlier that said, I am complete, I did send an email, all of that information stays in your database. So the problem with that is that when you are saving that information in your database, that you'll have to migrate that information. And then when you migrate that information, Winshuttle has to move all of the unique IDs over to your new site. With that said, some of the migrations were taking over 8 hours because there was over 50,000 records that were just sitting there stale. So with the scheduler here, you can actually schedule a job and have it run on a timer basis. So some people were actually using the Winshuttle or the Windows Task Scheduler. So instead of using the Windows Task Scheduler, now you can use the Winshuttle Workflow Central Admin, and you can actually schedule your jobs and see the history of them. And these are all the different types of jobs you can create. So you can purge background jobs, all of the SV services. You can purge process data that's been processed that's no longer going to be used for history. You can archive obsolete workflows. And then lastly, you can set up jobs to mark inactive processes. So by marking the process as inactive, that'll get rid of those orphaned records that that will slow down the performance of your site. Okay. And that is all I wanted to cover from a Winshuttle Workflow Central admin site. There is a lot of information, a lot of great things to set up. Definitely start using the scheduler to schedule your jobs. There is this workflow design configuration, which I said I was going to cover, that helps you look at plugins and participant resolvers that were ways of extending the platform. So when we at Clear Process Solution extend the platform or create these custom components, we always had to go to the server, we had to have access to the server, we had to put the files on the server. So with this new way of managing this workflow design information, now you can add your own custom components right to this workflow configuration editor. You don't need to have access to the server. So again, Winshuttle is just thinking of things to be able to do to get you access and things that you never saw before. Like, for example, that there's 55. I had always talked about these plugins before. You can click on the plugin. There's 55 different plugins, and you can add. So if we're looking through them, we can see copy attachments. One of our favorites, our PowerShell plugin is in there. You can add your own plugin as well by just clicking the Add Plugin. So you can see the plugin directory, the XML. You have to provide it the right format as you can copy a lot of this information. But once you do provide that information, that's when you can have your own custom PowerShell. I believe in our case, we created a PowerShell that should be on this site, maybe. Maybe it's not on this site. But you can search for anything like PowerShell, for example. And here's our execute PowerShell command plugin that we like to use. So this is a way to extend the platform, to administrate it, to get insight into your processes, doing bulk approvals, bulk cancellations. All of that, was very difficult to run through before. A lot of times from a development perspective, we create a lot of things and we just want to get them off our list. So instead of deleting them, we can say, for this site, show me all running processes, and I'm going to hit search, and then I'm going to be able to say, well, I want to show 100 processes, and then I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to go ahead and cancel these. So as we're developing forms and workflows and we're doing a lot of testing, we can just bulk cancel things with this tool. All right. I think that's all for our Winshuttle workflow demo. I'll take a look quickly here at the questions to see if there's anything that popped up. And it doesn't look like it, so we're good. We're going to go ahead and move into our next topic. Okay, form delegation. So form delegation is something that you see the control on the Composer application or the Winshuttle Designer application. You see the control and you say, what is this control? What is form delegation? Why do I need it? Does it make sense? And it absolutely makes sense in circumstances such as the one we're going to demo today, in which you are delegating your authority to someone else to fill out something. So if you think about it, we'll do a quick example just of a time off or an expense report. So I'm going to be out of the office. I need my admin to fill out my expense report. I gave her all the receipts. I just need her to do this. I need to delegate her to be able to do it on my behalf, because a form delegation always starts with a person up front, so the originator. And then they're going to delegate their authority to their admin, and then let the normal process that goes through for an expense process, it normally goes to your manager for approval, then it goes to HR to accounts payable to have you reimbursed for your expenses. So the normal workflow that we all design is going to remain the same. There's no difference in the workflow or the business process. The only difference is who's the originator and is that authority being delegated to somebody else. So with that said, we'll show you a quick example and then we'll show you how it's set up. All right, we're going to jump back over to our test site here. We have logging turned off, so we should not as slow as performance. And just to double check that I did turn logging off, I'll go take a look. So we did say error only. Okay. And because I'm impatient, I'll hit the back button a couple times. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our demo here for form delegation. And this form was developed in Composer. What I did is just a quick and dirty demo, and there's a lot more fancy things you can do with this. But just for our example, we're going to have a requester, and that requester is the person that's logged in. And you can see the fields grayed out, so I have no magic up my sleeve. So I'm currently logged into our SharePoint portal as a employee called employee. What I've created is a section that says form delegation, and then it says allow below to complete on your behalf. And then you can include comments for that person completing on your behalf. And then at the bottom part is the actual data that they're going to be really completing on your behalf, such as an expense report. So I'm going to go ahead and say, well, Mr. Justin Barr, can you fill out my expense report? I have to leave, but I need paid. Okay. So all I have to do now as the requester is we can see that the requester's up top there. He's grayed out. I'm just going to go ahead and hit save and route. Now what's interesting from the requester's standpoint is it looks like nothing has happened. They've delegated their authority, and this one is from a day ago. Let's ignore that one and look at the one that was created today. So I'll go ahead and filter by creation date here. So we'll say created today. Okay, so this is this one, looking at it, we don't see anything from a form perspective because we delegated our authority, and we're just sitting here as the employee with, it doesn't look like really anything was done. But let's go look at Justin's queue and see what he has for a task in a form library. So I'm going to sign in as a different user. Let's see if I can type my password correctly. All right, so this is gonna load up, and it's gonna have our form library here that we can also sort by creation date. And I do have a lot of forms, so it'll take a second here. And I'm going to sort my processing time descending to see if I have any new tasks. Okay, so here's my task right here. It says form delegation. That's the name of our form. It's from 416. It just showed up in my queue about 1 minute and 42 seconds ago. So you can see the difference in the icons that these are current tasks that are overdue versus this one's kind of grayed out. So there is a difference knowing that this is just something that you got delegated. So I'm going to go ahead and you can see there's no task name assigned to it because once we open up the form, you're going to see the difference that this really is not a running workflow, more so that somebody started it up, gave it to you, and then they left it as an as-is state. So we can see the employees, the requester. We can see the delegate was here, and we can see our comments that says fill out the expense report, but we see no data. And then at the very bottom, we see the save and route. So if you're familiar with the originator view, the first person who starts a process, the button that they always get is the save and route. But the button the employee clicked was save and route. So if you think about it, all we did is we moved the originator from the employee to now Justin, and now Justin has the capability to actually update the expense report data that the person delegating asked me to do. So we'll go ahead and just choose a couple expense dates. We just put in generic category. We can say fuel, and we'll say that it's $50. Once we're done with this and we filled out the expense on the employee's behalf, I can go ahead and click Save and Route, and that's actually going to continue down our business process. So let's look at our business process. We have loaded up here our form delegation solution, and then here's our workflow. We just designed a really quick solution that says the originator starts it, it goes to an employee or a manager for approval, we have an approval node, and then it just ends. Obviously, most business processes have your different notifications, your different levels of authority, but just as a demo purposes, we just put this together. And then now we can see on my task list for Justin that we have an expense report approval. Looking at the Composer solution, that's the exact name of this task, so it's expense report approval. So getting back to form delegation, all you're doing is you're delegating who the originator is, but it still goes down your same path. So we'll go ahead and approve this task, and we'll see the difference from an approval standpoint. We created a different view. On the view for the task, we see the originator or the requester is still the employee, even though if we're looking at the history down here, we see that Justin Barr started it. So your history is not going to change. So if we were to report on who actually started or who the originator was, the originator is always going to be Justin. The requester, though, has logged that it was delegated, through a form field. We can say that the requester actually was the employee. So with that said, we can approve the expense report. We'll go ahead and hit approve here, and then that will send it down your business process. All right, we're going to go ahead and before we look, I think I see a question here. Questions. Scroll up a little bit higher. Can you use 10.8 if you're still using Designer? Yes, so the answer is yes to that. So 10.8 was a workflow, Winshuttle workflow update. So they updated the actual workflow engine in the way that they're doing a SharePoint configuration, but they still have both form designers that you can use. So you would be using Winshuttle Designer 10.8, and you'll use Composer to integrate with this platform. So you can use Designer in 10.8. So hopefully that answers your question. And just from a quick configuration standpoint, I want to show you all the magic underneath the hood here. So we're going to go ahead and click on the form, and we're going to look at our form delegation control. So it's a very simple control. All I did was put this form delegation control right in line, and there's only a couple properties here. So if you want to use an existing control that's on your form, you can change that to true and then choose a different control to actually show where the delegates are going to be. But since I just wanted it in line, all I had to do was put this form delegation control right in line, and then that gives you the capability to do delegation. After that was done, that's all that we did to do this delegation. There was no other magic. It was just really one control. We put the current user control on here so that we can log who the requester was. So you can see that we're putting the full name of the requester in the requester field, which is great for reporting and auditing capabilities. So if someone was to open up your SharePoint list and you say, well, the requester was this, but the history shows that it was Justin, you can designate, well, the requester is Justin, and the requester was the employee, but Justin actually completed it on his behalf through our form delegation feature. So that was all with that particular solution. So pretty straightforward solution, and we'll go ahead and close that. I see we have about 15 minutes left, and we'll get into our data validation demo here. All right. So the last topic that looks like we have time for is going to be our data validation. We'll save our discussion around PowerShell for our next time and our use cases around that. How we are seeing a lot of examples with PowerShell, but with our data validation, there are a lot of ways to validate the data that's on your form. And a lot of people struggle with, why do I do it this way or that? There's no really right or wrong answer. It's just really doesn't meet your business requirements. If your business requirements say that it has to be a phone number, what are my options on being able to say this has to be a phone number? What are the controls out of the box that Winshuttle provides that I can leverage? And what else can I use? So the what else I can use is really jQuery is that last, more of a developer extension of the product, but it really does have some powerful features that we'll show you as far as confirmation boxes and requiring inputs. The definition I have below for jQuery is if you weren't familiar with it, it's just a cross-platform JavaScript library. It's there simply to coexist with JavaScript and HTML to make that rich experience from a form design perspective. So we use jQuery a lot when it comes to complex things that are happening on a form or even complex data validation. So we'll go ahead and look at our form here and our solution. So as we start out, we'll always start out with the form and take a look at some of the functions and features inside of it. So the first section on our form that we're going to look at from a data validation perspective is what are we using out of the box for rules, and how can we leverage those rules? So out of the box, we put in a single condition or a multi-condition here, or multiple conditions, in which it says enter 1 to be a valid value, enter 2 to be a valid value. So if I just go ahead and try to save and route this, we're going to get the out-of-the-box message that says your form cannot be submitted, there are validation errors, and then it's actually going to highlight the error for you, and you'll see this long red bar across the top. So in this case, if we put a 2 here and hit save and route again, we're still going to get our message that says, hey, this one's not valid. You need a 1 in this field. Once we enter a 1 in that field, then our error message goes away. So from a form perspective, how we set those validation rules up in the side of Composer is just setting rules. So if you right-click on your text box here and say Edit Rules, you're going to be able to see the rules and the conditions. So we're going to go ahead and click on the condition. And this condition is a very simple one. You can have a little bit more complex conditions, but in this case it says it's just a single condition. So use this condition. If it's not equal to 1, then go ahead and show an error. So the question is, what error do we show? So it says please enter 1 for this field, and it's a validation rule. So you have different types of rules: formatting, actions, and validations. Validations are what's actually being displayed on the screen. So it's very, very easy to use, and you can set up multiple conditions. As we did on our second rule here, we said, let's go ahead and set up a condition that says both 1 and, let me click on the right one here. We'll click on multiple conditions, and we'll say edit rules. So this particular condition says if single condition is not equal to 1 and the multiple condition is not equal to 2, then we're going to display our error. So you can set up as many as you want here. You can set up an or and an and. You can basically spell out what you want. From a rules perspective, where we see the rules moving, where we move away from the rules when you get into complex conditions in which it requires the arithmetic operations or parentheses to segregate those rules with ands. So this left condition with parentheses or this right condition with parentheses are hard to model using this particular use case, because what it does is it just starts at the top and evaluates down. So that's where we may get into jQuery, and which we have, which we'll actually start talking about now. Before we go down to our jQuery section, I do want to cover form validation and just the form validation control. So the form validation control is a very simplistic in nature control. It uses regular expressions or comparisons between fields to actually spit out errors on the screen. So in this case, we do have a regular expression tied to our form here that says only accept digits for this, and left bracket 0 to 9, right bracket for a field called only accept digits, and if it's not digits, it says please only enter a digit. So let's see how that plays out in the web interface. So here's our only accepts digits. We're going to go ahead and put in an A here, and we'll go ahead and try to submit the form. So here's our message, please only enter digits. So if we go back here, we'll hit OK on that. We'll go back here, we can just simply put a 1. And we're going to make these not valid so it doesn't submit on me. Let's see here, should be okay. So we'll go ahead and hit 1. We'll relaunch the form. So by only entering digits, this will actually not show the error, and then we'll see the next error that we had, which was comparing 1 and 2 here. So our error that we got before said please only enter digits. Well, now that we've actually have a digit there for our number 2, now it's going to go to our second part, which was to compare 1 and 2. So if we flip back over to our data form validator, we see that we have compare 1 is equal to compare 2, then compare 1 has to be equal to compare 2. So it's kind of like not logic where it says if it's not equal to this, then show a message. So in this case, if we say A is not equal to B, we'll go ahead and hit save and route, and we'll say compare 1 has to be equal to compare 2. However, if we go ahead and choose A again, then we're going to be able to submit the form, and because we don't have an error. Now I'm going to go ahead and relaunch the form in our last couple minutes here, talk about some of the jQuery functionality that we use a lot to add different levels of functionality to our form. It is a very powerful scripting language. It leverages a lot of JavaScript, so you can do almost anything from a client-side validation perspective with the jQuery product. So I wanted to show you some of the Winshuttle components for data validation that Winshuttle made available. So our first one is a validate, and what it does is just checks a value. jQuery 1 does not equal to jQuery 2. So this is just an alert message that says, hey, this field does not equal to this field. If we do put the fields equal to the same, then we click the validate, it says jQuery 1 does equal to jQuery 2. So how do we get that jQuery to work? How's it working on our form? So we have a button here, and if I click the button and go to rules, inside of our rules for our button, we have a custom jQuery field or function. So the function says if form.getValue jQuery 1 is not equal to form.getQuery or jQuery 2, then we're going to display an alert. So jQuery.alert will actually show you that modal dialog box we had up earlier. So it says jQuery 1 does not equal to jQuery 2. And then we have a title of form error. So let's take a look at that real quick again. We'll click on validate. It says jQuery 1. Let's make it invalid. We'll put B here. jQuery does not equal jQuery 2, and then we see at the top our title called form error. So this is very nice. It provides a little bit better of a modal dialog window for your users to actually be able to do it. So if you wanted to validate your entire form, you had 100 fields, and then you wanted to run through jQuery to make sure it's all valid, They click a button to validate. In jQuery, you can actually display all of the errors at once versus like we saw earlier, you can only display one section of errors. So that's a really nice feature of jQuery. You can just lump all your validation in one, but you do have to understand the scripting language and the if statements, because we have our else statement here that says if everything's okay, then go ahead and say form is correct. Winshuttle provides documentation what form.getValue really does. For the beginners or the novices, you can actually say go ahead and do a rule wizard, and we can put a condition here and says jQuery1 is not equal to, and then we can say let's insert a value, and we're going to look at jQuery2. So we'll hit OK, OK, and OK. And now you can have this little magnifier glass. Now this magnifier glass, when we click it, will give us the same condition that you saw in my statement. If jQuery1 is not equal to jQuery2, then I had my alert box come up. So if you are a novice and you still want to get into some of the jQuery stuff, you can certainly do that by letting Winshuttle start it out, and then you just have to actually complete it by putting in the alerts and then the else part of the statement. All right, so that is our alert dialog. So let's go ahead and take a look at our confirmation dialog. So our confirmation dialog, we want to, in this case, we want to say if jQuery1 is not equal to jQuery2, confirm that the person still wants to submit the form. If they decide to submit the form, that's fine. They can, maybe it's currently not written into our business rules that jQuery 1 and 2 don't have to be equal, but we want to make sure and confirm that the user still wants to submit the form. So if we click the confirm button here, it says, are you sure you want to submit form? jQuery 1 and jQuery 2 don't match. And then we have a yes, no. So if I click no, I'm going to get the message that says form not submitted. If I confirm and say yes, go ahead and submit the form, then we're going to get the message that says the form was submitted. So this is a really nice dialogue, a nice interface that allows the person, even though you didn't write into your business rules, it still allows them to process if it's acceptable and the business requirement dictates so. So how we set up the confirmation dialog is very similar, in which we have a button here that has rules. Inside of our rules, we have a same if statement we saw before, but now you're going to see something from jQuery called jQuery.confirm. And jQuery.confirm, what that does is it gives you your yes-no question. It's always going to present yes-no. It says, are you sure you want to submit form? jQuery 1 and jQuery 2 don't match. And then we have our name of our dialog, or our title of our screen. So we can see this parameter here says confirm submit. See how it says confirm submit in the title? The second parameter is actually a jQuery function. So when we put a comma here, we go into a jQuery function that says show an alert that the form was submitted if this parameter says if it was yes, if they answered yes. If they answered no, then we display the message form not submitted. So that's how we're able to display messages. So if we look back here and I say yes, then it says form was submitted. So these are all available in the Winshuttle documentation of what you have to provide, and they also do have examples in there, so you should be able to leverage that to model out what you want to do from a form design perspective. The other thing we did with this confirm dialog was if jQuery 1 does equal jQuery 2, we don't even ask them to confirm. We just tell them the form was submitted. So based on a condition, you could just display, yes, this was submitted. So lastly, we have two other jQuery functions that I'm going to show you since we're running out of time here. Please enter a number between 1 and 10. So if I'm going to enter 11 and hit OK, we have a function that says please enter a number greater than or equal to 1 or less than, and we hit OK and it'll come back to our screen. So this is great for pop-ups, and for people to provide values to your forms, and for you to validate that that number that they're providing is actually a valid value. So if we say 5 here, which is between 1 and 10, and I hit OK, now you can see that I wrote that 5 back out to the screen. So that's what that the prompt message allows you to do. And we will be providing these solutions so that you can actually review them on the knowledge base article that Dave had said. So I'm going to go ahead and real quickly look at the prompt. And our prompt message here is very similar in nature, that it expects a function. It does our if statement, validates. If it returns true, it was valid. Otherwise, we're going to say value not between 1 and 10. And then if it is valid, that's what we're using, this form.setValue. If it is valid, it's actually going to take the number that they inputted and it's going to store it in that field. So that's how we're able to store values that somebody enters in that modal dialog and how we're going to input that. So let me go ahead and click back out here and click prompt, and I'm going to put in 2 again, and you can see over on the left that we get our number thing here. The last thing I wanted to show, the only other jQuery function, was the tree choice. So when I click on a tree, we can actually expand this and put in our whatever nodes we want. So if you want somebody to select something based on a category, if you're like selecting marketing and they're selecting a field, or you're selecting information about your company and you want to organize it, you do have the capability to create a tree structure or a node. And by selecting this node and hitting OK, we can either put that data somewhere else, or we can put an alert on the screen that says your choice was node 3. All of that is done through our jQuery function. Again, this is all available on the web, and we'll provide this material. But you can see it's a pretty lengthy function on a choice tree is what it's called, and there's a lot of build up to put those nodes inside of that choice tree. All right, we will jump back over to our slides. We're going to go ahead and finish it up here. We're going to skip over PowerShell. We'll cover that next time. As we always discuss, we do offer solution care for customers that are looking for ad hoc support. They're looking for some way to help augment their staff or provide design or guidelines around some of the new forms that you are developing. So we do have a comparison chart here that you can see what your different our different capabilities and what it extends outside of your normal Winshuttle maintenance. And then lastly, we have our Lean Utopia events that are coming up. We have actually one today here in Ohio in Burntwood. We'd love to see everyone come. This one's going to be around our process optimization and focusing on SAP and master data, and then also SAP Go Lives. We have an event out in Colorado that we'll be holding on April 23rd, and then we have our lovely SAP guru, Lance Yoder, actually presenting at the ASUG there in Colorado. And then we have our next WEBtips session coming up on March 19th. That's going to be on our desktop products. And as always, we do have process templates available for the purchase order requisition that Clear Process Solutions has pre-built to help you get you 75% of the way there versus spending the next 6 months on a project to create a PO approval process. We've pretty much designed that for you. So I'd like to say thanks to everyone, for Dave for showing our knowledge base, and he will be putting this recording up there and letting everyone know, and look forward to seeing you in the next couple months for our next workflow topic that we'll start covering PowerShell scripts and how they can be integrated into your design. Thanks everyone, and have a nice day.